Admiral Kethvar watched the tactical display with growing unease. The Zilithian fleet had been decimated in less than an hour. What remained of their once proud armada now drifted as burning wreckage across the Kepler 442 system. The Thraxian war machine had proven unstoppable once again. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from the remaining Zilithian vessels," reported Commander Vexani from her station. Her forearms moved frantically across the holographic controls, trying to coordinate rescue operations while staying clear of the advancing enemy fleet. The bridge of the Alliance monitoring vessel Harmony's Edge hummed with nervous energy. Representatives from 12 different species worked side by side, their various breathing apparatuses and environmental suits creating a symphony of mechanical sounds. They had come to observe what many believed would be the final battle of the Outer Rim War. Kethvar's crystalline exoskeleton clicked softly as he shifted position. His people, the crystallites, had evolved to process light directly through their translucent bodies, and right now, the harsh red glow from the tactical display made his thoughts sharp and clear. The news was not good. "The Thraxians have deployed their new dreadnoughts," he announced to the bridge crew. 3 of them, each one the size of a small moon. A collective shudder ran through the various species represented on the bridge. The Thraxians had been conquering systems for over 2 decades, their military might growing stronger with each victory. They absorbed the technology and resources of defeated civilizations, becoming an ever more dangerous threat to galactic peace. "Sir, the Zilithian commander is requesting immediate evacuation assistance," Vexani reported, her voice tight with stress. "They have wounded aboard their flagship." Kethvar hesitated. The Harmony's Edge was an Alliance vessel, designed for diplomacy and observation, not combat. They carried minimal defensive capabilities and no offensive weapons. Moving closer to assist would put his crew of 37 beings at enormous risk. "The Thraxians aren't targeting rescue vessels yet," noted Dr. Zephyra, the ship's chief medical officer. Her serpentine form coiled around her workstation, her multiple eyes fixed on the medical readouts from the battlefield. "They seem focused on eliminating military targets." "That could change at any moment," warned Security Chief Grontok, his massive form nearly filling his specially reinforced chair. The Ursoid's natural armor plating shifted as he spoke, creating a sound like grinding stone. "Thraxians don't distinguish between combatants and civilians when the mood strikes them." Kethvar made his decision. "Set course for the Zilithian flagship. Best possible speed. We'll get as many as we can aboard and retreat to hyperspace immediately." The next 20 minutes passed in tense silence as they approached the dying vessel. The Zilithian flagship. Star Chaser was a magnificent ship, or had been. Its elegant curved hull, designed to work in harmony with solar winds, was now scarred by plasma burns and punctured by kinetic impacts. Atmosphere leaked from dozens of breaches, creating glittering clouds of frozen gases around the ship. "Docking complete," announced Pilot Furness from the navigation station. The young Avialan's feathers were ruffled with anxiety, his bird-like features sharp with concentration. "Emergency airlocks are sealed. Beginning evacuation procedures." Survivors began streaming aboard the Harmony's Edge. Zilithians were a graceful species, tall and elegant with flowing limbs that moved like water. But these survivors were broken, their usually smooth movements jerky with pain and trauma. Dr. Zephyra and her medical team worked frantically to treat the worst injuries. "How many did we lose?" Kethvar asked Captain Mordeth of the Star Chaser, as medical teams carried the Zilithian officer to the ship's medical bay. 43 ships, Mordeth whispered, his voice barely audible through his damaged vocal cords. "Nearly 30,000 souls. The Thraxians had weapons we'd never seen before, energy disruptors that bypassed our shields entirely." Kethvar felt a chill run through his crystalline structure. Energy disruptors were theoretical weapons, discussed by Alliance scientists, but never successfully developed. If the Thraxians had mastered that technology, no existing defensive system in the galaxy could stop them. "Admiral!" Vexani's voice cracked with urgency. "The Thraxian fleet is changing course. They're heading directly for us." The main display shifted to show three massive shapes moving through space with surprising speed. Each Thraxian dreadnought was a work of brutal efficiency, all sharp angles and weapon emplacements. They looked less like ships and more like predators, designed solely to kill and destroy. "Time to hyperspace jump coordinates," Kethvar demanded. 4 minutes, 30 seconds, Furness replied, his feathers now completely flattened against his body in fear. "The evacuation is interfering with our navigation systems." "We don't have 4 minutes," Grontok growled. "Those dreadnoughts will be in weapons range in 90 seconds. Kethvar's mind raced through their options. They could abandon the evacuation and flee immediately, leaving hundreds of Zilithian survivors to die. They could try to fight, though their minimal weapons would be useless against dreadnought armor, or they could wait and hope the Thraxians showed unexpected mercy. "Admiral, I'm detecting something strange," Vexani said suddenly, her voice filled with confusion. "There's an unidentified contact appearing on long-range sensors. It's moving incredibly fast." "Asteroid?" Kethvar asked hopefully. "No, sir. It's artificial. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. It's heading directly for the Thraxian fleet." On the tactical display, a new symbol appeared. It was small compared to the dreadnoughts, roughly the size of a heavy cruiser, but it was moving at speeds that should have been impossible for anything that large. The laws of physics seemed to bend around whatever this new ship was. "Could it be a Zilithian reinforcement?" Dr. Zafara asked, looking up from her patients. Captain Mordeth shook his head weakly. "We had no other ships in this system, and that energy signature, I've never seen anything like it." The mystery vessel was now close enough for detailed scans. Vexani's 4 hands moved frantically over her controls as she tried to gather information. "The hull composition is unknown," she reported. "I'm reading metals that aren't in any galactic database. The design is unusual, very unusual. It doesn't match any known ship architecture from any species in the Alliance records." "What about Thraxian?" Kethvar asked. "Definitely not Thraxian. This is something completely different." The unknown ship was now approaching the Thraxian fleet at impossible speeds. It showed no signs of slowing down, no attempt to communicate or negotiate. It simply flew straight toward 3 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy as if they were harmless debris. "The Thraxians are hailing the unknown vessel," Vexani announced, demanding identification and ordering it to change course immediately. "Any response?" "None that we can detect. The ship is maintaining course and speed." Kethvar found himself leaning forward in fascination despite the mortal danger they were all in. Who or what could be so confident as to approach 3 Thraxian dreadnoughts without even bothering to respond to their communications? "The lead dreadnought is powering weapons," Grontak reported grimly. "Looks like they're going to teach this newcomer a lesson about Thraxian superiority." "Sir!" Vexani's voice was now high with excitement. "I'm reading massive energy buildups from the unknown vessel. Power levels are... This can't be right." "The readings are off the scale." The tactical display showed energy signatures from the mystery ship that dwarfed even the dreadnought's massive reactors. Whatever power source it was using, it was beyond anything the Alliance had ever encountered. "Are we recording all of this?" Kethvar asked. "Every sensor we have is focused on the approaching contact," confirmed Science Officer Tella Arun from her station. The insectoid researcher's compound eyes gleamed with scientific fascination. "If we survive this, the data will revolutionize our understanding of starship propulsion and power generation." The lead Thraxian dreadnought fired first. A massive beam of coherent energy lanced across space, powerful enough to vaporize a small moon. It struck the unknown vessel directly, and had absolutely no effect. The mystery ship continued on its course without even slowing down. No shields flared, no hull damage was visible. It was as if the Thraxian weapon had struck empty space. "That's impossible," Grontak whispered. "Nothing can absorb that much energy without some kind of reaction." "The Thraxians are firing everything they have," Vexani reported with awe in her voice. "All 3 dreadnoughts are concentrating their fire on the unknown vessel." The space around the mystery ship lit up like a small star as dozens of weapons struck its hull. Plasma cannons, particle beams, kinetic projectiles, energy disruptors. Everything in the Thraxian arsenal was brought to bear on this single target. And still, the ship continued forward, completely unaffected. "How is this possible?" Captain Mordeth asked, his injuries forgotten in the face of this impossible sight. "I don't know," Kethvar admitted. "But we're about to find out what happens when an unstoppable force meets what the Thraxians thought was an immovable object." The unknown vessel was now close enough to the Thraxian fleet that its details were becoming visible on the main screen. The ship was sleek and purposeful-looking, with clean lines that suggested incredible speed and maneuverability. Its hull was a dark metallic color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Admiral," Vexani said quietly, "I'm detecting movement on the mystery ship's hull. Something is opening." Weapon ports. Dozens of them appeared along the vessel's sides and front, revealing themselves for the first time. They were small compared to the massive gun batteries on the Thraxian dreadnoughts, but something about them made Kethvar's crystalline structure resonate with instinctive fear. "The unknown vessel is about to return fire," he announced to his bridge crew. "All hands, brace for whatever comes next." The mystery ship fired. What happened next would be discussed in Academy tactical classes for generations to come. The unknown vessel didn't use massive energy beams or overwhelming firepower. Instead, it fired what appeared to be simple kinetic projectiles. Small, fast-moving objects that struck the dreadnoughts with surgical precision. The effect was devastating. The lead dreadnought, a ship that had conquered dozens of star systems, simply came apart. Not in a massive explosion, but in a careful, methodical disintegration. Critical systems failed in perfect sequence. Power conduits severed. Weapon systems went offline. Life support systems shut down. Within 30 seconds, 3 million tons of advanced warship had been reduced to lifeless debris. The second dreadnought lasted slightly longer, perhaps 45 seconds, before succumbing to the same fate. The third attempted to retreat, its engines straining to build enough speed for an emergency hyperspace jump. The unknown vessel fired a single projectile. The dreadnought's engines exploded, and the mighty ship went dead in space. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the mystery vessel simply stopped. It hung motionless in space, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. "Are you recording this?" Kethvar asked again, his voice barely a whisper. "Everything," Tellarun confirmed, "though I'm not sure anyone will believe it." The unknown ship was now moving again, but slowly this time. It seemed to be scanning the debris field, possibly looking for survivors or gathering intelligence. "Sir," Vexani said carefully, "the mystery vessel is turning toward us." Every being on the bridge held their breath as the ship that had just destroyed 3 dreadnoughts with casual ease began moving in their direction. There was no hostility in its movements, no aggressive positioning, but after what they had just witnessed, nobody felt safe. "Are they scanning us?" Kethvar asked. "Yes, sir. Very detailed scans. They're reading everything. Our ship configuration, crew composition, the wounded we have aboard. Any attempt at communication?" "None yet. But, sir, I think they're about to make contact." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of life support systems and the quiet clicking of Kethvar's crystalline body as he processed this unprecedented situation. First contact with an unknown species was always significant, but first contact with a species that could effortlessly destroy the most powerful warships in known space was something else entirely. "Admiral," Furness said suddenly, his voice tight with amazement, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's on standard Alliance frequencies, but the signal is incredibly clear, clearer than anything I've ever heard." "Put it through." A voice filled the bridge. It was unlike anything any of them had ever heard. Warm, confident, and speaking in perfect Alliance standard. The accent was strange, with certain vowels pronounced in unfamiliar ways, but every word was crystal clear. "Alliance vessel. Harmony's Edge. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth defense ship Endeavor. We noticed you were having some trouble with the locals. Do you require assistance?" The bridge erupted in confused murmurs. Earth? Nobody had ever heard of a planet called Earth. And how did this Captain Chen know their ship's name? Kethvar stepped forward, his crystalline structure catching and refracting the bridge lights as he moved. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Alliance. We appreciate your intervention. Might I ask what species you represent? Your ship and capabilities are unknown to us." A pause. Then laughter, actual laughter, came through the communication system. It was a warm, genuinely amused sound that somehow made the terrifying display of power they had just witnessed seem less threatening. "Admiral, we're humans. And as for our capabilities, well, let's just say we've been watching the situation in this part of the galaxy for some time now. We decided it was time to introduce ourselves. Humans." The word meant nothing to anyone on the bridge, but something about the way Captain Chen said it suggested this first contact was about to change everything. Admiral Kethvar stared at the main screen where the human ship Endeavor hung motionless among the debris of 3 Thraxian dreadnoughts. The vessel was roughly 2 kilometers long, smaller than Alliance heavy cruisers, but clearly far more advanced than anything in their databases. Its dark hull seemed to drink in the light from the nearby star, making it appear more like a shadow than a physical object. "Captain Chen," Kethvar said carefully, "your assistance is appreciated, but I must ask, how long have your people been observing our region of space?" Another pause, followed by that same warm laughter. "Longer than you might think, Admiral. We've been aware of the Alliance for about 50 of your standard years. The Thraxian expansion caught our attention roughly 20 years ago." Commander Vexani's 4 hands froze over her control panel. 50 years of observation without making contact was unprecedented. Most species announced themselves to the galaxy within months of developing faster-than-light travel. "If I may ask," Dr. Zephyra interjected from her medical station, "why did you choose to reveal yourselves now?" "Because," Captain Chen's voice turned serious, "the Thraxians were about to cross a line we couldn't allow. They were planning something that would have affected far more than just the Outer Rim territories." Security Chief Grontak leaned forward, his massive frame creating shadows across his workstation. "What kind of something?" Intelligence gathered from intercepted Thraxian communications suggests they were preparing to deploy biological weapons against Alliance core worlds. Specifically, a plague designed to target multiple species simultaneously. The bridge fell silent. Biological warfare was considered the ultimate taboo in galactic civilization. Even the most aggressive species rarely resorted to such tactics due to the unpredictable nature of biological agents. Captain Mordeth, still weak from his injuries, struggled to speak. How could you know about Thraxian classified communications?" "We've had assets monitoring their activities for some time," Captain Chen replied matter-of-factly. "Your species tend to use very predictable encryption methods. It took our computer systems about 3 minutes to crack their entire communication network." Science Officer Teleroon's compound eyes widened. Thraxian encryption was considered unbreakable by Alliance standards. Their quantum-entangled communication systems had never been compromised in over 2 decades of warfare. "Captain Chen," Kethvar said slowly, "I think it would be beneficial for our species to meet in person. Would you be willing to dock with our vessel?" "I'd be happy to, Admiral. Fair warning, though, humans look quite different from most species you're familiar with." "I don't want to cause any alarm." "We're accustomed to diversity," Kethvar assured her. "All right, then. Requesting permission to bring a small diplomatic team aboard. Say, 5 people?" "Granted. Docking Bay 2 is being prepared for your arrival." The communication ended, and Kethvar turned to his crew. "I want full security protocols in place, but nothing that could be interpreted as hostile. These humans just saved our lives and possibly prevented a galactic pandemic. We treat them as honored guests." "Sir," Vexani said hesitantly, "should I alert Alliance Command about this contact?" Kethvar considered this. First contact protocols required immediate notification of High Command, but the circumstances were far from normal. "Send a preliminary report. Inform them that we've made contact with a previously unknown species that demonstrated advanced capabilities. Include the tactical data from the engagement with the Thraxian fleet." "What about the biological weapons intelligence?" Dr. Zephyra asked. "Include that as well. Command needs to know the scope of what the Thraxians were planning." 20 minutes later, Kethvar stood in Docking Bay 2 with a full honor guard of Alliance security personnel. Representatives from several species were present: crystallites, Avialan, Ursoids, and others. The diversity was intended to show humans the cooperative nature of Alliance civilization. The airlock cycled, and Captain Sarah Chen stepped aboard the Harmony's Edge. The humans were, indeed, unlike anything they had encountered. Captain Chen was relatively small by galactic standards, perhaps 1.7 meters tall, with pale skin and dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Her features were symmetrical and pleasing, with forward-facing eyes that suggested a predator species, but her expression was open and friendly. What struck Kethvar most was how the humans moved. They walked with confident, economical movements that suggested both alertness and relaxation. Their eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, taking in details and assessing threats, but they showed no sign of nervousness or aggression. The 4 other humans with Captain Chen were similarly alert and confident. 2 appeared to be military officers, their posture straight and disciplined. One was clearly a scientist, carrying what looked like advanced scanning equipment. The 4th was harder to categorize, civilian clothing but with the same alert bearing as the others. "Admiral Kethvar," Captain Chen said, extending her hand in what was clearly a greeting gesture. "It's an honor to finally meet face to face." Kethvar carefully extended his own appendage, unsure of the proper response. Captain Chen grasped it firmly but briefly, then released it. The gesture felt warm and welcoming despite its brevity. "The honor is ours, Captain. Your intervention saved many lives today." "Just doing what needed to be done," she replied with a slight smile. "This is Colonel James Martinez, my tactical officer. Dr. Lisa Yamamoto, our xenobiologist. Commander Tom Petrov, our engineer. And David Kim from our diplomatic corps." Each human acknowledged the introduction with the same hand gesture greeting, showing remarkable consistency in their social protocols. "Perhaps we could move to a conference room," Captain Chen suggested. "I have quite a bit to share with you, and some of it is rather sensitive." Minutes later, they were seated around the Harmony's Edge's main conference table. The humans had politely accepted refreshments, though they had brought their own water containers and declined food offerings, explaining that they needed to be careful about potential biological incompatibilities. "So," Captain Chen began, "where would you like me to start?" "At the beginning would be helpful," Kethvar replied. "Tell us about humanity. Where did your species originate? How did you develop such advanced technology?" Dr. Yamamoto spoke up. We're from a world we call Earth, located about 200 light-years spinward of here in what you probably classify as unexplored territory. We evolved from predatory mammals on a rather challenging world. Challenging how? Dr. Zafara asked, her medical curiosity evident. High gravity, extreme weather, aggressive wildlife, frequent natural disasters, Colonel Martinez listed casually. Earth is what our scientists classify as a Class 12 death world. The Alliance representatives exchanged glances. Class 12 was theoretical. No known species had ever evolved on a world that hostile to life. That's impossible, Tel Arun said bluntly. No complex life could evolve under those conditions. And yet, here we are, Captain Chen replied with amusement. Earth produced thousands of species more dangerous than anything the Thraxians could imagine. We learned to survive by becoming very good at solving problems and working together. Commander Petrov leaned forward. Your technology is impressive by galactic standards, but from our perspective, you're still using fairly primitive approaches to faster-than-light travel and energy generation. Primitive? Kethvar was taken aback. Alliance technology represented the culmination of dozens of civilizations working together over centuries. No offense intended, Dr. Yamamoto said quickly. Your antimatter reactors are quite elegant, and your hyperspace mathematics are solid, but you're still thinking in terms of brute force solutions. What approach do humans use? Science Officer Tel Arun asked, her professional interest overcoming diplomatic protocols. We learn to work with the universe instead of fighting it, Captain Chen explained. Human physics focuses on understanding fundamental forces and using them efficiently. Our ships don't push through hyperspace. They convince space-time to let them through. The implications were staggering. If humans had developed technology that worked with natural forces instead of overwhelming them, their power requirements would be exponentially lower while their capabilities remained high. That's how you were able to withstand Thraxian weapons fire, Grontak realized. You weren't absorbing the energy. You were redirecting it. Exactly, Colonel Martinez confirmed. Our defensive systems don't block attacks. They convince the attacking energy that it wants to go somewhere else. David Kim, the diplomat, cleared his throat. Which brings us to why we're here. We've been monitoring Thraxian activities for years, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Today was that moment. Because of the biological weapons, Captain Mordeth said weakly. Partly, but also because the Thraxian expansion was approaching human space. We needed to establish diplomatic relations with the Alliance before that became an issue. Kethvar felt a chill run through his crystalline structure. How close is Thraxian space to your territory? Captain Chen consulted a small device. Their outer scouts are about 6 months away from our border systems. We've been relocating them whenever they get too close, but we couldn't keep doing that indefinitely without being noticed. Relocating them how? Vexani asked. Carefully, Colonel Martinez answered with a slight smile. Thraxian ships have a tendency to experience navigation errors when they enter certain areas of space. Their crews report mechanical failures that force them to return to base for repairs. The humans had been actively interfering with Thraxian expansion without anyone realizing it. The implications for galactic politics were enormous. How many humans are there? Dr. Zafara asked suddenly. On Earth, about 12 billion. But we have colonies on roughly 400 worlds spread across 50 star systems. The number was shocking. Most Alliance species had populations in the tens of millions spread across their home systems and perhaps a few colonies. Humanity's expansion rate suggested either extremely advanced terraforming technology or an unusual ability to adapt to hostile environments. 400 worlds in 50 systems? Tel Arun calculated quickly. That's an average of 8 colonies per system. How is that possible? Dr. Yamamoto smiled. Humans are very adaptable. We can live in environments that would kill most species. Desert worlds, ice worlds, high radiation systems, low-gravity moons. If it won't immediately kill us, we can probably make it work. Plus, Commander Petrov added, our engineering philosophy focuses on modifying environments to suit our needs, rather than waiting to find perfect worlds. David Kim leaned back in his chair. Which brings us to our proposal. Humanity would like to formally join the Galactic Alliance as a member species. Kethvar blinked in surprise. Most species required years of careful diplomacy and cultural exchange before joining the Alliance. Humanity was proposing immediate membership. That's unusual, he said carefully. The Alliance has specific requirements for membership: peaceful intentions, technological compatibility, cultural exchange programs. We've been observing your civilization for 50 years, Captain Chen pointed out. We know your requirements, your political structures, your technological standards. We also know that the Thraxian threat is far from over. What do you mean? Captain Mordeth asked, his injuries forgotten in the face of this revelation. Colonel Martinez activated a holographic display that showed the local galactic region. Red areas indicated Thraxian-controlled space, green showed Alliance territory, and blue marked human space. The fleet you destroyed today was just one task force, he explained. Thraxian intelligence indicates they have at least 12 more fleets of similar size positioned throughout their territory. They're planning a coordinated assault on Alliance core worlds within the next 6 months. The scope of the threat became clear. The Alliance had been celebrating minor defensive victories while the Thraxians prepared for a massive offensive that would overwhelm their defenses entirely. How do you know this? Grontok demanded. We've had people inside Thraxian space for years, David Kim admitted. Humans are very good at blending in when necessary. Our agents have been gathering intelligence and occasionally sabotaging critical operations. You have spies in Thraxian space? Vexani asked incredulously. Spies, saboteurs, and in a few cases, advisors, Captain Chen said calmly. Some Thraxian military commanders have been receiving strategic advice from what they believe are their own tactical computers. In reality, they've been getting input from human operatives who have been subtly steering them away from their most effective strategies. The revelation was staggering. Humanity had been manipulating Thraxian military operations for years, possibly preventing the Alliance's complete destruction without anyone realizing it. Why help us? Kethvar asked. You could have simply avoided contact until the Thraxians and Alliance destroyed each other, then claimed the entire region for yourselves. Dr. Yamamoto looked genuinely shocked at the suggestion. Because that would be morally wrong. The Alliance represents dozens of species working together peacefully. That's exactly the kind of civilization humans want to be part of. Plus, Colonel Martinez added pragmatically, humans have learned that diversity makes civilization stronger. We've seen what happens when single species try to dominate regions of space. It never ends well. Captain Chen stood up, her movement fluid and confident. Admiral, we're offering the Alliance humanity's full support in the coming war with the Thraxians. Our technology, our intelligence networks, our military capabilities, everything we have. In exchange for? Kethvar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Membership in the Alliance with full rights and responsibilities. We want to be partners, not conquerors. David Kim produced a small device and placed it on the conference table. This contains detailed intelligence on Thraxian fleet movements, planned attacks, technological developments, and strategic objectives. It also includes technical specifications for human defensive systems that can be adapted for Alliance ships. The offer was unprecedented. An unknown species offering advanced technology and crucial intelligence in exchange for partnership rather than demanding territorial concessions or tribute. I'll need to consult with Alliance Command, Kethvar said carefully. This is far beyond my authority to approve." "Of course," Captain Chen agreed. "But Admiral, I need you to understand something important. The Thraxian offensive begins in 36 days. After that, it may be too late for any of us to stop what's coming." The weight of those words settled over the conference room like a physical presence. The galaxy was about to change forever, and the next few weeks would determine whether that change meant liberation or extinction for billions of sentient beings. "We'll be waiting for your answer," Captain Chen said as she and her team prepared to leave. "But not for long. With or without the Alliance, humanity will not allow the Thraxians to continue their expansion. The only question is whether we face them together or separately." As the humans departed, Kethvar realized that everything he thought he knew about galactic politics had just become obsolete. Humanity's arrival would reshape the balance of power in ways that none of them could fully comprehend. The question was whether the Alliance would be wise enough to accept the partnership being offered, or whether old prejudices and bureaucratic procedures would blind them to the opportunity standing before them. Either way, the Thraxian threat was about to meet something they had never encountered before, a species that had evolved specifically to survive the impossible. The emergency session of the Alliance High Council had been underway for 18 hours. Admiral Kethvar stood before the assembled representatives of 43 species, his crystalline structure reflecting the harsh lighting of the council chambers on Nexus Prime. The holographic displays around him showed the tactical data from the Thraxian engagement, human intelligence reports, and strategic projections that painted an increasingly grim picture. "The human intelligence appears accurate," confirmed General Thexmore of the Draconid Military Command. His reptilian features were drawn tight with concern as he reviewed the data streams. "Our own reconnaissance confirms Thraxian fleet movements consistent with their reports. We estimate enemy forces outnumber Alliance defensive capabilities by approximately 8-1. Counselor Yith-Andra of the Celestial Union floated near the central podium, her gossamer form shimmering with agitation. "The tactical recordings are impressive, but how can we trust a species we've never encountered? For all we know, this could be an elaborate deception." "Counselor," Admiral Kethvar replied respectfully, "the humans destroyed 3 Thraxian dreadnoughts with casual ease. If they intended to conquer Alliance space, they wouldn't need elaborate deceptions. Unless they wanted to avoid the cost of a prolonged conflict," interjected Minister Volkath of the Trading Consortium. His multiple tentacles waved dismissively. "Psychological warfare is often more efficient than direct assault." The debate had been continuing in circles for hours. Some council members were enthusiastic about the Human Alliance proposal, others were suspicious, and many were simply paralyzed by the unprecedented nature of the situation. "If I may," came a new voice from the chamber's main entrance. Captain Sarah Chen stepped into the council chambers, flanked by Colonel Martinez and Dr. Yamamoto. They had been waiting outside for most of the session, but apparently someone had decided to invite them in. "Captain Chen," Council Speaker Dexayor acknowledged formally. His ancient voice carried the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience. "The Council appreciates your patience. We have been discussing your proposal." "I'm sure you have," Captain Chen replied calmly. "But while you've been discussing, the Thraxians have moved up their timeline. Our intelligence network reports the first wave of their offensive will begin in 14 days, not 36. The council chamber erupted in alarmed murmurs. General Thexmore's claws extended involuntarily as he processed this new information. "How can you be certain?" demanded Chancellor Morrigan of the academic worlds. Dr. Yamamoto stepped forward. 3 hours ago, our operatives reported that Thraxian High Command issued final deployment orders to their outer fleets. Fuel and ammunition shipments that were scheduled for gradual distribution have been accelerated. Several civilian populations in Thraxian territory have been evacuated from border worlds. That could mean many things, Counselor Yithandra pointed out. It could, Colonel Martinez agreed. But combined with intercepted communications about Operation Final Storm and the sudden mobilization of Thraxian biological warfare specialists, the pattern is clear. Captain Chen activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of Thraxian fleets. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings of all classifications, you have 13 days to prepare for the largest military assault in galactic history. You can spend those days debating our qualifications for alliance membership, or you can spend them getting ready to survive. The stark presentation of facts cut through the political maneuvering like a blade. Even the most suspicious council members couldn't argue with the tactical realities. What exactly are you offering? Council Speaker Dex Ayur asked directly. Captain Chen gestured to Colonel Martinez, who produced a data crystal and placed it on the central podium. Complete technical specifications for human defensive systems, weapon designs that can be rapidly manufactured using Alliance industrial facilities, intelligence on Thraxian fleet compositions, attack routes, and strategic objectives, and immediate military support from 12 human task forces. 12 task forces? General Thexmore's reptilian features showed surprise. How large are these forces? Each task force consists of 1 heavy cruiser, 4 destroyers, and 2 support vessels, Colonel Martinez replied. Similar in size to Alliance formations, but with significantly enhanced capabilities. The numbers seemed modest compared to the massive fleets the Alliance could theoretically field, but after witnessing the Endeavor's performance against the Dreadnoughts, nobody questioned their effectiveness. Minister Volkath's tentacles writhed thoughtfully. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't use this crisis to establish dominance over Alliance space? Dr. Yamamoto laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both amused and slightly predatory. Minister, if humans wanted to dominate this region, we wouldn't need the Thraxians to weaken you first. We've been watching your technological development for 50 years. With respect, you're not really a threat to us. The blunt assessment sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber, but Captain Chen raised a hand for silence. However, she continued, dominance has never been humanity's goal. We've learned from bitter experience that diversity and cooperation produce stronger civilizations than conquest ever can. We're offering partnership because we genuinely believe the Alliance represents the best hope for long-term stability in this region. Counselor Yithandra's form shimmered with what looked like skepticism. You speak of bitter experience. What exactly does that mean? Captain Chen and her officers exchanged glances. Finally, Dr. Yamamoto spoke. Human history includes several periods where individual nations or ideologies attempted to dominate through military force. These periods inevitably ended in massive conflicts that nearly destroyed our civilization. We learned that cooperation and mutual respect are not just morally superior, they're practically necessary for long-term survival. In other words, Colonel Martinez added grimly, we know what happens when conquest becomes the primary goal of a civilization. We've seen the Thraxian pattern before, just on a smaller scale. The weight of human history, wars, genocides, and near extinctions hung over the chamber like a shadow. Here was a species that had faced the choice between cooperation and destruction and chosen cooperation, even when they possessed the power to dominate. Very well. Council Speaker Dex Ayur announced after a moment of silent consultation with his advisors. The Council will vote on emergency alliance membership for humanity with full military cooperation privileges. The voting process took less than an hour. When it was complete, the results were overwhelming. 38 votes in favor, 3 against, 2 abstentions. Captain Chen, Council Speaker Dex Ayur declared formally, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I welcome humanity as our newest member species. May this partnership bring prosperity and peace to all our peoples. Captain Chen smiled, the first genuinely relaxed expression Admiral Kethvar had seen from her. Thank you, honored speaker. You won't regret this decision. Now, General Thexmore interrupted, his military priorities taking precedence over diplomatic niceties, let's discuss how we're going to survive the next 2 weeks. The transformation of Alliance military capabilities began immediately. Human technical advisors appeared on ships throughout the fleet, overseeing rapid installations of new defensive systems. Alliance factories retooled their production lines to manufacture human-designed weapons and shield generators. Admiral Kethvar found himself aboard the Alliance flagship Unity's Promise, watching human engineers work with an efficiency that bordered on miraculous. Commander Sarah Chen, she had been promoted upon formal Alliance membership, moved through the ship like she had been born there, understanding systems and making improvements with startling speed. "How do your people adapt so quickly?" he asked as she finished calibrating a new defensive array. "Practice," she replied simply. "Humans have been adapting to hostile environments for our entire evolutionary history. New challenges, new threats, new allies. We learn fast because we have to." The first test of human alliance cooperation came sooner than expected. 7 days after the emergency vote, Thraxian scout forces probed the outer systems. They found upgraded Alliance vessels with capabilities far beyond previous encounters. The engagement was brief but decisive. Alliance ships equipped with human-designed systems destroyed the entire scout force without taking a single casualty. More importantly, they did so in a way that prevented any Thraxian vessel from escaping to report what they had encountered. "The Thraxians will assume their scouts were destroyed by conventional Alliance forces," Commander Chen explained during the post-battle briefing. "They have no reason to suspect that anything has changed." General Thexmore's approval was evident in his posture. "Your people understand deception as well as direct combat." "We understand war," she replied soberly, "in all its forms." As the days passed, more human capabilities became apparent. Their intelligence network was vast and sophisticated, with operatives throughout Thraxian space providing real-time updates on enemy movements. Their logistical systems were extraordinarily efficient, moving supplies and personnel with minimal waste. Most importantly, their strategic thinking was both innovative and flexible. "They're teaching us to fight like humans," Admiral Kethvar realized during a planning session. "Not just using human weapons, but thinking like humans." "What does that mean?" asked Captain Mordeth, who had insisted on remaining with the fleet despite his injuries. "It means," Commander Chen answered, "learning to see warfare as problem-solving rather than just applying force. The Thraxians are powerful, but they're also predictable. They rely on overwhelming strength and intimidation. Humans learned long ago that strength without flexibility is a weakness." The final Thraxian assault began exactly when human intelligence had predicted. Massive fleets emerged from hyperspace at 17 different locations simultaneously, intending to overwhelm Alliance defenses through sheer numerical superiority. They met something they had never encountered before, an alliance that fought back with human ingenuity. Instead of meeting the Thraxian fleets head-on, Alliance forces used human-designed sensor jammers to disappear from enemy detection. They struck at supply lines and communication nodes, disrupting Thraxian coordination. They used the enemy's own momentum against them, luring overconfident Thraxian commanders into carefully prepared ambushes. The Battle of the Vanguard Nebula became the turning point. Thraxian Admiral Coraxvel led 200 ships into what appeared to be a lightly defended system, only to find himself surrounded by concealed Alliance forces using human cloaking technology. "This is impossible," Admiral Coraxvel transmitted as his fleet was systematically destroyed. "Alliance technology cannot do this." "You're right," Commander Chen replied over an open channel. "Alliance technology couldn't do this 6 months ago, but the Alliance has new members now, and humans don't fight fair." The systematic destruction of Coraxvel's fleet sent shockwaves through Thraxian High Command. For the first time in their expansion history, they faced an enemy that was actively outthinking them. The war continued for 3 more months, but the outcome was inevitable. Thraxian fleets, accustomed to overwhelming weaker opponents, found themselves consistently outmaneuvered by an alliance that combined the strengths of dozens of species with human tactical doctrine. The final battle occurred at the Thraxian fortress world of Dominus Prime. Instead of the massive assault the Thraxians expected, human alliance forces simply waited. They blockaded the system and offered terms for surrender. "We know you have planetary shields that could withstand our bombardment," Commander Chen transmitted to the Thraxian leadership. "We also know your population includes millions of non-military civilians. Humans have learned that true victory doesn't require the destruction of your people, just the end of your expansion." The Thraxian surrender came 3 days later. In the aftermath, as Alliance and human forces worked together to establish new diplomatic relationships with former Thraxian colonies, Admiral Kethvar reflected on how dramatically the galaxy had changed. "Your people saved us," he told Commander Chen as they watched the peaceful transfer of power on a former Thraxian world. "No," she replied thoughtfully. "We all saved each other. That's what allies do." The Galactic Alliance now included 44 species, but somehow the addition of humanity had made it stronger than just the sum of its parts. Human adaptability combined with Alliance diversity had created something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly cooperative interstellar civilization. "What comes next?" Admiral Kethvar asked. Commander Chen smiled, her expression holding the same warm confidence that had first surprised him weeks ago. "We explore the galaxy together. We learn from each other. We face whatever challenges come next as partners. And if we encounter other hostile species, then they'll learn what the Thraxians learned," she replied calmly. "That humans don't fight alone anymore. And when humans have allies, we become very difficult to stop." Looking out at the stars, Admiral Kethvar realized that humanity's arrival had indeed changed everything. But unlike the Thraxian expansion that had brought only conquest and fear, the human partnership offered something the galaxy had never seen before, the possibility of unlimited growth through cooperation rather than domination. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human alliance partnership had begun. And for the first time in decades, the galaxy looked toward the future with hope instead of fear.